All right, what is up, fellas? I believe I'm live now. Sorry for the late start. Yeah. Let's see, put this in full screen. How's everyone doing? This episode, I don't really have super set topics I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about like a specific culture or specific structure or something like that. I want to do a little bit of world building. On the path of mainstream, hey Galunas, good to see you. On the path of mainstream science and mainstream thinking, I am so far removed from it in so many different ways that I feel like I need to establish more of a common ground on me too, man. On just like how I view the world and how I think the world operates and what's actually going on, because it's difficult to have these conversations. I've talked about this in previous episodes of, you do kind of have to work off of like a basis of assuming all of this mainstream stuff is true to a certain point, because it becomes really difficult to even have the conversation. So I want to introduce some more tools, some more ideas, some more ways of thinking about things that'll hopefully help with that a little bit. And I want to shout out a channel that I just found this week called Formscapes. Is my camera a little bit foggy? Maybe it's got a fingerprint smudge on it or something. So that does look a little bit better, I think. So I just found this channel, Formscapes. And he's absolutely fantastic. I've only watched a few of his videos. Chicken alarm. This guy right here. And I can already tell it's an A+ channel. Man, this thing, he's got some real bangers in here. And just yesterday, he uploaded, wrong tab here. He uploaded How Science Became Unscientific. You can see I'm only halfway through the video. It's a 2-hour-long video, so it's a bit much, but halfway through, it's absolutely incredible. I've recognized these patterns myself, is how science works and how it is corrupted. And so as far as the mechanics go, it's kind of just a review for me. But as far as the actual details, like this guy, he's naming names within the first 5-6 minutes. He's talking about Jeffrey Epstein and all these other people, and how not only explaining the mechanisms by which science has been corrupted, but going back to the source and explaining when and why and how they got corrupted. And it's a really, really fantastic watch. I'll be finishing it probably after this stream. I don't think he necessarily goes into conspiratorial aspects so far. I'm only halfway through, so I, don't know what the second half contains. I could be wrong here. But so far, he's been explaining it all. There are some bad players, right? There are some bad players, and he addresses that. But really, all of this is able to happen through organic means. I've used the analogy previously of putting 10 monkeys in a room, and you have a rope in the middle of the room with a bunch of bananas at the top. A monkey's going to try and climb the rope to get to the bananas, but no, he didn't. He definitely did not. But a fire hose pops out of the wall, blasts the monkey off the rope before he can reach the bananas. And maybe a couple more monkeys try, they get blasted off as well. Pretty soon the monkeys learn not to climb the rope. And you can start replacing the monkeys one by one. You take one of the monkeys out of the room and you put a new monkey in who doesn't know anything about the water hose. It's going to try and climb the rope. But the other monkeys are going to pull it down and stop it before it gets blasted off. One by one, you can replace every monkey in that room until you have no monkeys that are aware of the fire hose at all, but none of them will climb the rope. And even if you keep replacing monkeys, they'll keep pulling the new monkeys down, not letting them climb. And that's a very simplified way of thinking about how this corruption in science works. There's other mechanisms at play as well, but he brings up how these scientific facts, right, are used as currency, as social currency, right? It's like if you are able to repeat all of the right facts, you have a higher social standing than someone who can't. Are these facts actual facts? Are they actually based on good science? No, but that is how they're used in our society. You saw this especially like in the early stages of COVID and in the mid stages and even late and to some degree now, where you just got to repeat the right facts. You got to repeat the right thing. That gives you that social standing. And so, when I use this analogy about the monkeys and how archaeologists in all branches of science, really, but when I was talking about it, I was talking about archaeologists, how they police themselves, they monitor themselves. It doesn't require any shadowy cabal of figures that are pulling the puppet strings, individually controlling every single scientist. It doesn't require that at all. They do it themselves. If someone, you say you have a coworker that starts exploring an avenue that is outside of the mainstream narrative, you know that you need to start distancing yourself from them because their career is going to take a hit, their reputation is going to take a hit. They're not going to be able to get financing to do their research, right? This is it's a toxic thing. It's something you avoid just naturally out of self-preservation. So it's like you don't need to be told by some shadowy figure with blackmail, hey, you better not get on board with this. You just do it automatically. And Danny asked the question of like, well, what happens when there's just like a discovery made that's too big? It's like, surely that doesn't work 100% of the time, right? And the answer is very simple. You only need to control one thing to control everything, and that's the media. The media establishes the narrative, and then people naturally follow the narrative. In science, in all walks of life, in every regard, people it's an incredibly strong motivator to fit in and to play that social game of stating the right facts. People don't want to be ostracized. They don't want to be looked at as a whack job. It's a very, very powerful influencer, and that's all you have to control is the media. And I think everyone recognizes the media is controlled. The CIA openly admits that they control the media. That's all you need to control it all. You don't need every single scientist in the world being in on it. Like I know one of the biggest arguments against flat Earth and against this kind of line of thinking in general is that it's too big. It requires too many people. It's just how could they control all of the scientists across the whole world? The answer is the media. It's very simple. And to some degree, the education system. What's up, Watson? Good to see you here. And so, yeah, science is absolutely corrupted. It is unscientific. It is, all of it is really, really bad. I highly recommend this video right here. And if you're interested in just generally alternative ways of thinking, this was actually the very first video of his I watched, the Divergent Science Iceberg Part 1. And I talked vaguely about this a little bit last week, but let me get my screens right here. I had actually developed independently most of the ideas that he discusses in that video. I'd never heard the names of them before. I'd never heard anyone else talk about them before. So it was really cool watching that video and hearing, actually getting names put to the ideas and stuff like that. The only idea that I'm not fully on board with is actually the only idea I had heard of previously to that video, which is the bicameral mind. I don't know if I'm saying that right. just throwing it out there that I don't really endorse that one, but the rest of those ideas I think are very valid. And one of the big ideas discussed in there, it's actually in like 3 different parts. It builds upon itself. So like it starts out on one level and then they expand it. The idea is basically that the universe itself is conscious. So, you go back to how did the universe start? How does something come from nothing, right? And there's no way to prove any of this, but my preferred mode of thinking is that, yeah, definitely don't rock the boat. There are severe consequences for rocking the boat. My preferred way of thinking is that it all started with a consciousness. You start with a consciousness. How that consciousness is born, who knows, right? It's the same problem no matter how you decide to look at this. Where does it start? Who knows, right? But you start with a consciousness, and that consciousness, it probably starts with a color, black or white, or the 2 of them, and then it starts forming shapes, and then eventually it builds upon itself until you get this entire universe. And the universe itself observes itself. We are part of the universe. We observe the universe. And while a lot of the universe is relatively set in stone, like the laws of gravity and physics and such, there's been so much observation and so much, cementation of those laws that they're pretty rigid now. But the universe itself is formed by the collective consciousness. And things like the Mandela effect could be explained by this. I don't know how much you guys have looked into the Mandela effect. There's some really, really interesting examples. I'll give you one. Hello, my darling. Hello, my baby. What's the next line of that? You know the dancing frog? Everyone knows the dancing frog, right? Hello, my darling. Hello, my baby. What is the next line? Because we all remember what that next line is. I'm waiting for someone to type it in chat because I know you guys know this. So the next line is not hello, my ragtime gal. Yeah, it's not my ragtime gal. That's not it. You can go look it up on YouTube. In fact, I might go look it up right now to demonstrate. And let's see what he says. Am I going to have an ad for my 15-second video? If my computer will load it. Let's take a little look here. Wow, dude, has the universe changed again? Okay, I'm losing my mind here. I'm straight up losing my mind here. Straight up losing my mind. I just looked this up, dude. I just looked this up. I just watched the video. I swear to God. I swear to God it didn't say ragtime gal. I swear to God. So, all right. There's some really weird examples. There are some very weird examples of the Mandela effect. I don't know. I don't have an explanation for that other than the explanation that I'm trying to provide. So there are very strange examples of the Mandela effect where people really seem to remember something else, but then it seems to have changed. And this is possible with what I'm trying to put forward, this idea of the collective consciousness actually shaping things. So our observations shape things. So you see some weirdness with quantum mechanics, right? We just recently started observing these things. And so it's quite possible that those things didn't even exist until we started observing them. The laws that govern them aren't even necessarily set in stone yet because it hasn't been cemented within the the universe observing itself yet. And so this fluidity of reality, which I think is a possibility, you could potentially have things like that, hello my darling, hello my baby, hello my ragtime gal, changing if for whatever reason there was a shift in the collective consciousness. It could effectively retcon actual reality and change it in retrocausality. So that's one of the ideas that is talked about in that iceberg Formscape video, and I rather like that idea. I, interestingly enough, developed those ideas from listening to Fudge Muppet, which is a channel that talks about Elder Scrolls lore, and they go balls deep into the esoteric lore of this game universe. And the more I listen to them talk about it, the more I realize that everything they're saying not only very easily applies to our universe, but actually makes a lot of things make more sense. So yeah, I don't think I said this already, but feel free to call in. Phone lines are always open, but they're extra open on this one. I don't have like a set specific topic, like I was saying. So, this would be a perfect episode if you just want to, you have some thought, you have some question. There are some strange examples. If you actually start digging into the Mandela effect, I can just about guarantee you'll find a few that'll make you scratch your head and be like, man, that I really did remember it that way. And now it doesn't seem to be that way. And then you also, there are artifacts left over, right? So like the Berenstein Bears, there are people who have books that say Berenstein rather than Berenstein, or vice versa, or whatever. And same with like the Fruit of the Loom. I have seen logos with the cornucopia. It's all kind of weird stuff. Could be AI messing with things to see how much they're able to rewrite history without people noticing and objecting. Could be what I was suggesting. Could be, who knows. Hey, look, we got a call in. I guess you're just on audio. I don't hear you, Michael. I think you're in the room, though. Yeah, okay. It looks like you just turned on your audio. Hopefully, Mr. Galunas is able to chime in. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, there were a few. I had some vague ideas of some things I wanted to talk about. Last week, I completely forgot to talk about the missing 1,000 years hypothesis, or the inserted 1,000 years, I guess, would be a more accurate description. I see your chat, your text chat. I don't hear your voice, though. Yeah, I don't think there's anything I can do about that. I can ask you to start video. It looks like your mic is on, though, from what I can tell. I even see volume levels. Very strange. All right. Join audio. Let me try that. I'm worried there's going to be an echo now. So let me know in chat if there's an echo and if it's too gnarly. Hey, Michael.
Hey, Goob, what's up? Can you
There
hear me?
we go. How's it going, man?
Living the dream, dog. Living the dream. I feel like a boomer here. Never used this before.
Same, man. I have no idea.
When I was a kid, we had tin cans with a string. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, to talk to each other.
Word. Yeah. Hey, so last time I was listening to you, you were telling that story about that fella that told you about the Indian mound or whatever he was in. He was
the Celtic mounds.
Yeah. So just that week, it was funny that you brought that up because I had just watched something about I think what is it, Prince Madoc, and it's like this theory about this Welsh guy who came to the United States, and there's a bunch of Indians that basically have a language that sounds a lot, like old Celtic or old Irish or Welsh, whatever. I'm not really sure which one you would call it. You know what I mean? But and so it was funny that you brought that up because it's like there's all that stuff. If you go all the way up from the bottom of the Mississippi, from like Florida, all the way up to New York State, there are those mounds that go all the way up to there. And I've never ever heard about that until just recently. You know what I mean? There's stuff like that all over the United States. So I thought that was funny that you brought that up. But
and I mentioned CF Apps, the 7865 or whatever it is. He covers that a lot. His focus was North America, and I mean he's got some really great. He did a lot of it just from Google Earth. So much of his work was just from Google Earth, and it was fantastic. But he also did some really good research, and he got like pictures from construction sites. So like there's a lot of these mounds and other structures that have just been destroyed because someone's building a highway. And I mentioned like an anchor, a 200-year-old anchor shut down a bridge project for like 18 months over here. And so they don't want to report this stuff, and they often don't. But somehow he got his hands on pictures of some of this stuff as it was being destroyed. And you can see it. They're just bulldozing into these mounds and various other structures. And these
mounds, they found like copper axes and copper tools in mounds that like over 1,000 years ago. So well before any white boys showed up on the coast, theoretically. You know what I mean?
Supposedly, right? Because they were definitely here. They were definitely here.
Right. And the Indians themselves always had. I mean, so I'm going to use that term like as the whole group, right? You know what I mean? But individual tribes have stories where basically it sounds like white people been showing up forever, especially from the right side, you know what I mean, from the East Coast. And then there was I forgot it. There was another thing. So I watched that CFF's guide because I was looking up those, all in the East Coast, we have a bunch of these stone walls all over, right?
And there's a massive one in New Jersey, weighs more than the Great Pyramids. Yeah.
And so it probably was through the Appalachian Trail would be my guess, because there's a bunch in New York State and Pennsylvania as well. And in like Putnam County, there's all of those chambers. Have you ever seen those?
Not ringing a bell at the moment.
Okay, so there are these chambers. They keep calling them. They call them root cellars. Okay, except for there's like no shelves. There's no door. It faces the spring or fall equinox or the winter one, right? So like, why would a farmer wait until January 23rd or December 23rd to build his freaking, his root cellar? You know what I'm saying? Like the sun's got to come in through there. They're built with these giant lintels. I did a video on it. That's how come I discovered that CFF's guide. And in Putnam County, for some reason, has the most of them. Yeah, Putnam and Rockland County. But the stone walls are all up in like the East Coast. Then in Pennsylvania, there's a bunch of the cairns, like the big rock piles. Then all the way down through the Mississippi is all of the mounds. And then like in Ohio, you have tons of stuff, you know what I mean? Like they would build the mounds, like there's one called Fort Ancient where there's this giant site where they like flattened off the top of a hill, and there are like walls all the way around. It's probably like, I don't know, I'm bad with distances, but like, it's acres and acres, like, 20 acres, this whole thing. It's huge, but yeah, all the way through there, you can find this stuff. And the other thing I think with that too is to listen to the language with some of that stuff, right? Listen to what like the words sound like instead of what they would be spelled like, because the language is going to give it away a lot of times where any of the diffusion would happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Word.
Yeah,
But yeah,
so with the language, there's actually, and I couldn't tell you where it's located, but somewhere in the United States there is a stone with Celtic runes on it.
Oh yeah. So that was okay. So the place that I did the video on in upstate New York, right in the Putnam County, they theoretically found runes on a stone there that said that the Irish were here gathering oak for the Romans in like the 1200s or something.
Yeah, there's probably more than one of these stones, quite honestly, because what happens is they're just dismissed. They just get ignored. They go, that's fake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like another thing, they find Roman coins all the time. You know what I mean? All the time that are older. Again, a lot of this stuff dates, that I find anyway, seems to date, according to what they're saying, at 1000 AD to like 500 AD. You know what I mean? So again, there shouldn't have been any reason for Roman coins there. I don't know if the Vikings would be coming over here with it. You know what I mean? But like, in Kentucky, they found one. Again, there's those mounds in Kentucky as well, right? Like, and they find this weird stuff in the mounds. They also find tall dudes in the mounds.
Yeah,
you know,
the ginger giants, like Watson said in chat. Yep.
Yeah, and then the redheaded white guys, right? Like, I think they found them. In fact, that's like one of the, like, there's the tribe called the Mandans down there, like in North Carolina.
Lovelock Cave.
Yeah. Also, look into Indiana and Illinois. There's crazy stuff there, but it's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm a bit of a diffusionist when it comes to the New World. You know, I don't think the New World's new by any stretch of the imagination.
Absolutely not.
You know, if I had this vast resource just sitting here and I could bring it back, you know, and nobody knew, and I could trade the Indians a bunch of freaking blankets for copper ingots that are so pure that you just have to pound them, you know, you could just dry pound them. I'd keep that secret.
Their beads.
Yeah, I tell everybody the world was flat. That's the other thing. Like when I was a kid, we learned that Columbus came to the New World because he was going to prove to everybody the world wasn't flat and he wouldn't fall off the end.
Yep.
Did you guys learn that?
Yeah, that's what I was taught.
Okay. So what they just decide to stop that story now?
Yeah, I don't even know what's being taught anymore. I mean, you know, women were the warriors and everyone in Europe was black, so you know,
that's true. Oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, but have you heard of the Montana megaliths?
Yeah, so I heard, I did see some stuff about that. I do see some stuff where they say it looks like that couldn't be natural stone the way that it's formed.
100%.
I didn't personally go and see it yet.
There's even one example where there's a wall, and in the middle of a wall, there's a different type of stone.
Oh, wow.
So there's no way that, like, there's zero possible chance that that's natural. Plus, there's the very, very tall dolmen that, you know, these two very tall rocks. I think they're 30 plus feet high, and it's got another rock sitting on top of it, and they're, like, sitting straight up like towers.
Right.
That certainly doesn't seem natural. How does that happen naturally? But, yeah, the different, there's, like, a pink rock in this gray wall right in the middle of it. So 100% that stuff's man-made.
Word. There's that's another thing about the dolmens. There's all over upstate New York too, right by that same area where there's these chambers too, right? You could, like, the ones that I did the video on, you could throw a stone from one to the other, and again, they're both, one is oriented to the winter solstice, one is oriented to the spring and fall one, right? Because that one comes up the same one, and then maybe. There's all of those. Then you know, a couple of miles away is it's probably like you've seen it on the History Channel's done a thing on it. You know, it's like a popular dolmen in upstate New York. You've probably seen it. If you like write dolmen in upstate New York, this one will probably come up. And it said there's a sign that says it was done by the Celtic. And finally, I didn't read the actual article, but I heard that they conceded that there's like 4 conical stones underneath that they said, were shaped by man. And I see, the stones underneath are like limestone. The one on top's like marble. It comes from a couple 100 miles away. And then like 90 miles directly, like maybe not 90, but like directly, I forget how many, but not that far away. So like in a line is another one that's like right there. And then one more of them, the dolmens, they're all over up there though too. There's also this one right by where I did it. It was called Hawk Rock, and it's got a bunch of ancient petroglyphs of like a beaver, a bunch of animals. There's a bunch of petroglyphs in that area too. Yeah, you just never hear about any of this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you really don't. And yeah, it's going back to what you were saying about the Americas being very thoroughly explored. Yes, absolutely. And there's been many different explorations through many different times by many different people. So the Celts came over to spread Christianity, right? Like the Celts, as far as I can tell, right, they were introduced to Christianity and they went, we fucking love this shit. We need to give it to the entire world. And that's what they did. They immediately went out to the entire world spreading this stuff. And which is why you find you not only find language connections to the Americas with Celtic languages, but you find it in other parts of the world as well. You'll find you'll find stones just like in North America with runes on them in other parts of the world as well. I think there was even one in Australia found. That I might be mixing that one up with. I might be mixing the Australia one up. That might have been a different language. But anyway, you do find them in various parts of the world.
There's hieroglyphs there.
Yeah, that might have been the hieroglyphs in Australia. I might have been mixing that one up. But there were also even earlier explorations before that, like in South America, Quetzalcoatl, their god, was described as a blue-eyed, white-skinned, bearded man. And he wasn't the only one, right? There's a few examples of that. And there's they talk about their ruling class being these blonde-haired, blue-eyed, bearded people. And there's depictions of them. So yeah, it really seems that there was a lot of exploration over here from many different people at many different times. You had the Phoenicians going all about, and this is slightly different, but it's something I wanted to talk about, and you reminded me of it, so I appreciate it. When I was talking about Egypt, I came to the conclusion that all of the stuff we're seeing minus the bases are possible with this primitive technology, but I was still hesitant to just accept that at face value, and that's because you can't just look at Egypt in isolation. You have to look at the entire world. And you see these crossovers amongst all of these different civilizations, from the handbags to the acorn, or not the acorns, the pine cones, to the griffin people, with the griffin heads.
What? Okay.
Right. So like the Sumerian, the people with like the hawk heads and the... Right, you'll see that in the dresses and the pine cones. You see that in America. You see that in
you see the swastika, right? You see that everywhere. I mean,
like that everywhere.
Like, what did everybody independently come up with that? And then that
the nubs,
that border you see around like old Irish stuff. You see it in the Levant area, like Roman floors. That border where it looks like it would be like, I don't know, maybe a it's just like a border, you know what I mean? Like it's like not straight line, but it's like a straight line. Yes. You see that thing all the time too. You know what I mean?
The nubs on the giant megalithic blocks, the cyclopean polygonal blocks, which no one can explain those. I love those because there's zero explanation. No one has any idea what those are for, and you find them everywhere. So the idea of people make the argument of like, well, a pyramid is the most basic shape. Of course, you're going to find that all over the world. Makes perfect sense. I have no issue with that.
I mean, dude,
but then the
everybody's house is
nubs
interesting.
being seen all over, we have there's nothing basic about that. We've been thinking about it for thousands of years and haven't come up with an explanation, and you see it everywhere. Same with the metal, I don't really know what to call them, but the holding things where, they make the T-shaped or the I-shaped.
Oh, yeah, right. They hide those things so you don't see that they're underneath them.
Right. So there's just far too. They're clearly. I disagree with a lot of Graham Hancock's arguments.
First of all, I mean, like, why were they using metal in the Stone Age again? And how do they put it in there? And I mean, that's just, you know what I mean? It's so problematic. It's not even funny.
Yeah, but yeah, I disagree with a lot of Graham's arguments, but his overall argument that all of these cultures are connected is undeniable.
Correct. I mean, first of all, like, you get in a boat off the tip of Africa, and at the right time of year, you'll end up in the Bahamas in 2 weeks. Wait a couple more weeks, you're at the mouth of the Mississippi. The Mississippi is pretty much navigable all the way to the top, right? I mean, America has so many navigable rivers, it's not even funny. A big hike after that, and you can take a boat all the way from the bottom of the Mississippi all the way up through New York. You might have to hike it a little bit. You get back on the water, and then you can go back out to the Atlantic. It makes less sense that they walked over some freaking land bridge over some crazy ass mountains in the middle of Alaska than to hop the coasts along any of the coasts, but even especially along the top of the Atlantic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, there's the cocaine mummies. There's an endless.
What else I was going to say?
Yeah, there's endless examples of this stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So, all right, Doug.
Yeah, good talking to you. Thank you for calling in.
Touch with you, by the way. Do you use Twitter? I don't use that, but I got to start.
I have YouTube, and I'm in the Boys Cast Discord. If you want, I can.
How do you those Discords, man?
I mean, I don't know if you're in the Patreon, but you can get the link.
No, I'm not. Technically, I'm supposed to be, but I'm not. Don't tell.
But yeah, so if you're paying for Danny's stuff, Danny should give you the link to the Discord.
Word.
It's not hard to join. Okay. I'll also post an email address in the chat.
Okay,
so,
cool.
Yeah.
All right, Tippin. Word. All right, dude. Good talking to you, man.
Yeah. So one of the ideas, and Zoom's about to run out, but one of the ideas that is my own idea, because most of what I talk about is just observations that other people have made, the vast majority of it really, but one of my GOOB originals is that there was a reset 6,000 years ago, and this ties into what I was just talking about with the Phoenicians. They've got a dozen different names. The Sea People, the ancient Sea People that spread their culture and civilization across the world. We were just talking about all these examples of intertravel, right, and interconnectedness of cultures. You look at religions, you see a lot of similarities, undeniable similarities between religions from ancient Egypt to Christianity to the Greek and Roman religions to even Indian religions. They're all pretty much based on the same thing, it seems. But so you get this alternative history narrative of 12,000 years ago you had Atlantis, this super advanced civilization, and then it gets wiped out by the Younger Dryas, and then for 6,000 years nothing happens. And then after 6,000 years, these Atlanteans just pop back up and start spreading their civilization all over the world. I don't see how that makes sense. I'm not rejecting the idea of Atlantis. I think it's quite possible it was real. I don't. I think the idea of Atlantis has been corrupted by our modern times. So I was listening to someone that made the point of the myth of Atlantis keeps evolving to match our current technology. So 100 years ago, there was the myth of Atlantis, but Atlantis back then, they weren't reported to have cell phones and Wi-Fi and all of the inventions that we have now, because we hadn't invented them now. We hadn't invented them back then. But as our technology keeps improving, so does the supposed technology of Atlantis, right? And so the idea of a sorry, I'm just gonna pause this for a second while I can't multitask. So give me a minute. I'll post the new link. If anyone else wants to call in, they can. Okay. 70030. 3 zeros. Got it. And the password. Okay. Should be in the meeting now. Copy the invite link. And sorry, folks. Bear with me here. Give me a moment. I still am having issues with, let me see if it's working. My channel doesn't like to display my own video. Oh, I already have it pulled up here. Perfect. But yeah, I can't see my own videos on my own channel. So I have to log into a different am having account to pull this up. Let me see if it's working. My channel doesn't like to display my own video. Oh, I already have it pulled up here. Perfect. But yeah, I can't see my own videos on my own channel. I'm trying to pause the video. Just didn't want to. There we go. All right. That is the new invite link if anyone else wants to join. And I was talking about the Phoenicians, the 6,000 year ago reset. I don't remember exactly where I left off. I apologize. Right, I guess just I think that Atlantis quite possibly was a real place. I don't think it necessarily had this super, super duper high tech stuff of lasers and spaceships and all of this kind of mythical level of technology. But something more advanced than, the Stone Age, certainly. Like, the Greeks were very advanced. The Romans were very advanced. If there was something similar to that, potentially even more advanced than that, I totally could see that being the case. But it was very thoroughly wiped out 12,000 years ago, because you don't see a recovery immediately after. What you do see is this explosion of civilization 6,000 years ago. And so in this worldview of the spicy sun that I have, right? The sun gets real spicy occasionally and just absolutely butt fucks the earth and erases all civilization, almost kills everything, does some real gnarly stuff. And we seem to be due for another one of those in our near future. But that doesn't mean the sun is just chilling in between, right? We all recognize that the sun can just decide to get spicy on any given day, and it does. And there's a lot of accounts from history of some very interesting events with the sun. There's accounts of like the earth standing still, the sun staying at high noon, for like a full 24 hours, or on the other side of the world being in darkness for a full 24 hours. There is some corroboration with some of these stories. Crazy lights in the sky and other things. And you see a lot of vitrification on ancient stones in Peru, in Egypt, and all over the world. Maybe it's caused by lightning. Maybe it's even caused by something terrestrial. But it is very interesting when you see granite being melted, and in just like seemingly random ways, which might indicate lightning. I don't know. I'm not an expert on this topic, honestly. But this explosion of civilization 6,000 years ago, to me, does indicate some type of restarting of civilization. It doesn't seem like they're just starting from zero. If you look into the Sumerian civilization, they had everything. They figured out all the math. They figured out language. It was a very complex language that they had. They had, you know, everything. They, like everything the Greeks had, everything the Romans had, right? These pretty advanced civilizations the Sumerians had. They went from 0 to 100 real quick, and then you start seeing this spreading out throughout the rest of the world as well shortly after there. So maybe they just had a whole bunch of freaks of nature. You know, there's these once in a generation geniuses, and maybe they just happened to birth 1,000 of them all at once, you know, and they just exploded into civilization. Maybe that is the case. Doesn't seem the most likely explanation to me. I think that there was probably a smaller reset, something that didn't completely rearrange the face of the earth, that didn't completely destroy everything, but it was enough to restart a civilization. And then you do see the people picking up the pieces and reforming civilization 6,000 years ago and going out from there. So, yeah, I've not heard anyone else present an idea like that. I am still working on it. It's still very much in the development phase, but yeah, it seems to fit. It seems to fit as far as I can tell. And then you have those sea people, those Phoenicians or whatever you want to call them, that spread that culture all over. So that's a Goob OG. Like I said, very much still in the early phases of that idea. Still have a lot of work to do to flesh it out and try and find evidence of this. I don't know, you know, a lot of things don't last 6,000 years, so it might be a tough journey to find that evidence. But that's what I'm leaning towards right now. Is I think there was some type of cataclysm, and it even could have been man-made. People do crazy things. Like a civilization could also have just been wiped out by disease, could have been wiped out by who knows. Switching gears again back to America, because there is a lot of misconceptions about America. The South America with LiDAR, we just keep finding more and more and more civilization down there. Huge expanses of roads, right? Huge expanses of roads, massive cities. And every time we look, we find more of it. We've explored a very small portion of South America with this LiDAR technology. And every time they do, they just keep finding more of it. The population and the level of advancement in South America is so much higher than what we've been led to believe, and very likely in North America as well. When why can't I ever remember the guy's name? But the conquistador, when he came over and he took over Mexico City and he conquered, you know, the natives that were here, he was conquering an already post-apocalyptic world. Their civilization had already collapsed by the time he got here. There were earlier reports of earlier people here reporting civilizations larger and just as advanced, if not more advanced, than what you were seeing in Europe at the time. Populations larger than what you're seeing in Europe at the time. Okay, so and now this is being confirmed with LiDAR. These cities of gold, all of these legends that, you know, were just legends. Yeah, well, they actually happened. And so why didn't the conquistadors, why didn't any of these people find any of it? Why didn't they see any of it? It's because they were already conquering a post-apocalyptic world. Their civilization had already collapsed. It had already been reclaimed by the jungle. Their population had already collapsed. They had turned into savages. They were savages when the conquistadors came and conquered them, but that's not what they were, you know, say 50 years before that, 100 years before that. They had a grand civilization that would rival, if not outperform, Europe's. I mean, 90+% survival rates for brain surgery. We don't achieve that today. Doing the surgery for the exact same reasons, right? Emergency head trauma surgery. We have a lower survival rate today than what they were achieving in the Aztec civilization in South America. The narrative of the Americas is so far off basis, it's not even funny. There were lots of people, there was lots of travel back and forth. There was a massive population over here. There was a massive civilization over here. They were advanced. They had some of the best celestial calendars and tracking, period. And I imagine you can apply a lot of this to North America as well. You know, what I was talking about with CFAPs, the level of destruction, the level of hiding history. Any mention of giants is obviously hidden up. And when I'm talking giants, I'm talking like 7 foot tall, 8 foot tall, maybe 9 foot tall, right? We're not talking 50 foot tall people. We're talking giants, Andre the Giant, you know? Yeah, and I don't think it was alone. Like, I think there was a lot going on in South America, not just a single city. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, probably also in North America, and it's been so obfuscated in North America. I mean, you've got kind of wacky reports. They're not all that wacky when you consider the cocaine mummies and stuff, but of Egyptians in the Grand Canyon, you know, and it really is hard to know what to believe because things are just covered up. I gave the example of the guy in the bar. Like, Native Americans have so much say over this stuff. If it's not just the Lakota tribe. Like, that is how things work around here, is if you're digging something up, the Native Americans get absolute say and control over all of it. Whatever they say goes, period. So yeah, it's the story of the Americas is not even close. It's not even close. Anyone else wanna call in? Anyone else have any thoughts? No. I'm just chilling. You want to talk about the moon landing? Here's some fun stuff. I'll talk about the moon landing a little bit. So if you guys aren't familiar, NASA lies. I don't know how much you guys are aware of this, but NASA is absolutely a propaganda arm, as well as, you know, a space exploration arm, but potentially more significantly a propaganda arm. They lie blatantly and boldly and constantly. They have repeatedly been caught faking their footage, reusing test footage and, you know, like footage from Earth where people are in pools doing simulations and such, and trying to pass that off as actual spacewalks and stuff like that. You get some really interesting statements from some of the astronauts themselves that went to the moon, which I have had a hell of a time trying to find again on this heavily censored internet. But before I get into the NASA, I just want to tell a fun story. So I was watching a live Tesla SpaceX whatever launch. I think it might have been the launch with the car, and I was watching it live, and as I'm watching it live, I see, as the rocket is entering or exiting the atmosphere, I look at the booster, and sitting right there on the cone of the booster rocket is a rat, and it appears to be scurrying around. And maybe it was just being moved by the vibrations, but it seemed like scurrying, because it would scurry and it would stop, and then it might change directions and it would scurry. And as I was watching this live, I was typing, are they reusing footage from a previous launch? Because I had actually seen a rat on a Tesla rocket or a SpaceX rocket previously. And as I'm watching that live, I go and I pull up in YouTube the old stream that also had a rat on it, and I compare them side by side. They actually are two different videos. They weren't reusing the same, but this has happened twice. There have been rats directly on, yeah, it happened twice, Mike. What? Right? I'm no rocket expert. I'm no rocket scientist, but it didn't make sense to me, man. One, I would have to think that those booster engines are getting hot enough that it would just like vaporize the rat. Two, how's it stay on there through the whole takeoff, flying through the atmosphere at a bajillion miles an hour with a bajillion G-forces and all of this? Like, I don't know, man. That is some fishy stuff. So, yeah, you can look up if you go to YouTube and I don't know what that's in reference to, Mr. Glunas. I guess it's just being slow. It's always slow for me too. But yeah, you should be able to find this video fairly easily. Hopefully, I was the last time I looked for it, but that was a while ago. And so yeah, that raises some questions. But I'm not actually someone who believes space is fake and space exploration is fake. I've watched the International Space Station fly across the sky many times. I've seen other satellites flying across the sky. I don't think they're just balloons like some people do. It's moving way too fast for a balloon, the ISS. So I do believe we're going into space, and I do believe we probably even went to the moon. So that raises the question, why is there so many shenanigans with NASA? Why are the shenanigan levels just off the charts? Where there's this island, I forget the name of the island off the top of my head, but it's where they have the Mars rover, and I mean that literally as well as hypothetically. So a lot of people claim that the pictures from Mars are actually pictures of this island on Earth that they just redshift and claim are Mars. They do redshift all of the pictures from Mars, by the way. They admit that they edit the sky and they edit the ground to adjust the colors to make it more in line with what people would expect it to look like rather than showing us what it actually looks like. They openly admit to doing that. But then there's claims of people who supposedly have even gone to this island and lined up some of the pictures and recreated some of the photos that are supposedly Martian photos. But on top of this, this island is also where they actually have a clone of the Mars rover. So they have the rover on Mars and they have the rover on Earth, and they drive both of them. I again, not an expert, so I don't want to try and explain this too fully because I'll probably sound stupid and be wrong, but they have a Mars rover on Earth, and it's on that island. It's on the very island where, yeah. So they are going to space. Why are they lying so much? Why are they being so deceptive? And a lot of people lean towards fake moon landing. They lean towards fake space. And I think that's exactly why they're lying. I think that's exactly what they want people to think. I think that the more likely scenario is that we're actually doing far more in space. There's a hell of a lot more going on in space, right? We went to the moon like 60, 70 years ago, 60 years, a long time ago, okay? And then have done nothing since then? No, we probably have got some bases up there. We've probably got, I mentioned, and I don't remember his name, but I mentioned that guy that supposedly photographed some of these secret spaceships out in space with his telescope. I think that's a much more likely scenario. Why is NASA lying so much if we really are doing things? And as far as I can tell, we really are doing these things. So it makes me think that they want us to think space is fake. They want us to think they're lying. They want us to think we didn't go to the moon because they're hiding the fact that we've actually got a hell of a lot more going on in space than we're being told. That's what I lean towards. That's my schizo take on the moon landing. But yeah, if anyone else wants to call in, please feel free. If not, I think I'll go ahead and wrap it up. It's been a fun, chill sesh. I had fun talking to you guys. The rat on the Tesla, that's a fun one. I suggest you look up those videos. Yeah, I'm just trying to build the world I live in for you guys, one step at a time, trying to build some common ground, and because my beliefs are nowhere close to the mainstream. I'm stepping out of bounds pretty much every opportunity I get. So it was a good time. I'll see you guys later. I'll see you guys next week, and enjoy your week, fellas.